I have something I want to talk about today. What I'm going to talk about this topic and how I will tackle this topic, I really don't know. It's a little tricky. So we will see how it unfolds in the moment and what emerges spontaneously. But the choice I have is, do I start with a sitting practice today and then move on to talking about, the topic for today, or do I start with with the topic itself? And I think what I'll go with is we'll start with a sitting practice because I've been running around here and there doing some shopping, and then I think I need a sitting practice to settle myself, and then we'll see what emerges. Okay, so let's sit comfortably wherever we are. Take a nice long deep breath in, fill up your lungs. And as you exhale, relax yourself and relax your body. And take another nice long deep breath in. And as you exhale, relax yourself. One more last time. Inhale. And let go as you exhale. Bring your awareness to whichever part of the body where you feel the most predominant sensation right now. It could be in your head, eyes, face, chest, abdomen, hands, legs, back. Wherever is the most predominant sensation in the body right now, just bring your awareness to that. Just hold that sensation in awareness. If any thoughts come and obstruct the awareness of the sensation of the body, then just take note of those thoughts. Let them come and let them go. Once the attention is released from the unconscious thoughts and the story, Bring it back to awareness of the body and the sensation. As you are aware of the body and the sensation, just cultivate an attitude of surrender while you watch the sensation. Watch it with the feeling of surrender, letting go. You're not trying to control anything. You're not trying to make the sensations go. You're just watching whatever sensations are occurring in the body. Silent, still, in this backdrop of silence and stillness, sensations come, sensations go. Thoughts come, thoughts go. Just keep watching through the eyes of silence. Watching doesn't require any mental commentary. Just silent, just still, witnessing whatever is happening. Whatever occurs on the screen of consciousness. Sounds, sensations, thoughts, feelings. They all appear in consciousness. And they all disappear. And new thoughts, new sensations, new sounds, new feelings come. Life is nothing but a series of experiences happening one after the other. These experiences are made of the five sensations, thoughts, feelings, emotions, perceptions. And yet there is some element of life which watches whatever happens without getting involved in it. The breath happens, inhalation, exhalation, inhalation, exhalation. But something keeps watching the breath. The sensations happen, pleasant, unpleasant, easy, difficult. Something keeps watching the sensations. Thoughts happen, all kinds of thoughts come and go. Something keeps watching all the thoughts that appear and disappear, like a river flowing, and something is watching the river flow. When we reside in the silent stillness, there's a natural ease. It's a natural feeling of being one with our being. We don't need to do anything for this. We need to just become silent and still for some time. In the silent and stillness, we realize life is happening by itself. Thoughts are occurring, sensations are happening, choices are being made, actions are happening. Life is taking care of itself. And life is also watching whatever life is doing. As though there are two paths to life, one that is active and changing all the time, and the other that is witnessing and constant all the time. Let go, surrender, drop all effort. Just be as you are, natural, simple, without any goals, without any purpose. Just existing, just conscious, just aware, just present. Remember, we can come into this presence, can come into consciousness, we can come into awareness, we can get in touch with existence whenever we wish, because there's never a time we are not conscious, we are not alive, we are not existing, we are not present. All we need to do is take a pause and shift our attention into this dimension of life, which is the expression of life itself. Shift our attention from this constantly unconscious thoughts that are going on in our mind to simple awareness. By practicing silence, by practicing stillness. as often as we can. Nice long deep breath in and exhale. Another nice long deep breath in and exhale. Slowly and gently, at your own time, at your own pace. Whenever you feel like it, slowly and gently rub your palms and cup your eyes. So, welcome back. I hope the practice helped you to settle down your mind. Definitely helped me. Uh, so, what is it that I want to talk about today? So, I want to talk about uh, a word that we use very often in our life, and that word is responsibility. Mm. Right since our childhood, we've been told, mm, no, you must be responsible. One must be responsible. One must behave responsibly. Uh, and part of that responsibility is to do uh, often what our elders want us to do, often what the policies or the rules in the school that we go to. For example, to behave responsibly for me as a child, it was that I need to study hard for my exams. Um, I need to respect my elders. I need to, follow all the moral codes of conduct. I need to be honest. I need to be well behaved. That was uh, follow the rules of wherever I am in the school, and that's an indication of behaving uh, responsibly. And so we all have notions of what responsible behavior is, and that's a very important part of our mind, of our conditioning. And we all try to, even as we grow up, try to behave responsibly. And that would mean to be a responsible employee, to be a responsible citizen, to be a responsible partner, spouse, husband, wife, uh, to be a responsible son or a daughter. Um, so we play so many different roles, and each of these roles requires some um, some kind of a behavior, some kind of actions, some kind of obligations, perhaps, from us that is considered to be responsible behavior. And also, there is an element of responsibility towards our own self, because and that would mean that we perhaps take care of our health, that is being responsible towards our own self. That would mean maybe waking up on time, maybe um, doing some exercise, eating healthily, um, mm, taking care of our mental, emotional self. Um, those are some elements of being responsible towards our own self. So there's not just responsibility towards other people, responsibility towards our work, but there is also responsibility towards our own self. And each person's idea and notion of responsibility is different. So there is no one any kind of a template that this is responsible behavior. In the sense, each there may be, you know, five women playing the role of a mother, and each one will have their own way of being a mother and what they consider as being a responsible mother. That's just an example I'm giving you. Or perhaps for that matter, there are various employees in an organization, and each one will have their own version what it is to be a responsible employee, and it may not be the same for each person. Similarly, being a responsible parent, a responsible spouse, a partner. So there is no sameness in terms of what responsible behavior is. For somebody to be responsible is that I need to be always on time. That's responsible behavior. Excuse me. For somebody else, responsible behavior is not so paramount about having to be on time, but responsible behavior for that person is to be available when that person is really needed. That's responsible behavior. So even though we all have some idea and notion of what responsible behavior is, but that behavior is different for each individual according to their own conditioning, childhood conditioning, based on what they have grown up with, ideas that they have grown up with, or things that have worked for them. And then those um, become like a voice of responsibility in the mind. I think that's the best way to put it. If I were to use um, psychological language, if I were to use the language of Freud, then that voice of responsibility is the super ego at the topmost part of the psyche, which is telling you this is what you should do, this is what you should not do, this is good behavior, this is not good behavior. Or if I were to use the language of transactional analysis, which is another school of psychological thought, then that's the voice of the parent, the parental part of the ego or the psyche, which is saying, this is good, this is not good. So that is the voice of responsibility. And other than responsibility, there is another part to us, which is the part of us, which is, I think, the best two words that describe that part is um, impulsiveness and spontaneity. Now, these are very closely related words, but they are different. But it's a part which is not necessarily which doesn't really think. Responsibility is a mental function, which is an element of these are what I think is responsible behavior, right? It's a thoughtful um, approach to behavior, which is responsible behavior. Look, I should not behave impulsively. I should impulsively could be like, overeating. Now, responsible behavior is telling, oh, I should not be overeating. I should eat judiciously. Uh, Impulsive behavior could be sleeping late. Responsible behavior is waking up on time. So there is another part of us which is, one need not say that is irresponsible, which is sort of, I think the best word is impulsive. Now, supposing if someone behaves in a certain way which is not pleasant, then the impulsive behavior is to really get angry and shout and react. Maybe a responsible behavior is to be calm and respond in the situation, right? I hope you're getting the difference. And this impulsive behavior is also, and has an element of spontaneity, which is what we all need in our life, because we can't always be like robots which are based on programs. I should get up at so and so time, I should do this, and I should do this, and this otherwise we become really robotic, because in a way responsibilities are all the things that we should be doing, which almost makes us um, non-human. A part of intrinsic part of being human is doing things which are also unpredictable. Mm. So, and that unpredictableness is always not bad per se, because sometimes you just want to be spontaneous. You just want to do things. It's like, uh, again, if I were to use the language of transactional analysis, it's the child in us. The child in us wants to be spontaneous. It wants to do things not always thought through. The child doesn't think so much. It's the parental voice in us which is responsible. Do this, don't do this. This is good. This is bad. The child is just impulsive, intuitive, and also there's a lot of good also in non necessarily thoughtful behavior, because a lot of art, a lot of creativity comes out of spontaneity. Art and creativity is not like a thoughtful activity, it's a spontaneous action. Even kindness, even generosity, there is also an element of spontaneity. And so, uh, there is an element of spontaneity in kindness, and there could also be a responsible behavior of kindness. So the same action may be coming from different spaces. One space is, there's a natural movement, a feeling towards wanting to help someone, and other spaces which is say, I must help another person. And even if I don't like the person, then I must help the person. Now that's coming from a parental space. This is coming from a responsible space. And quite often there is a conflict between this voice of responsibility, and then there's a conflict between this childish uh, part of us. In Freudian language, then this childish part of us would be called the id. That is the part of the ego, the spontaneous part, the impulsive part, which is not in many ways socially conditioned part, which just does things on the spur of the moment. It likes this, it doesn't like this. It's very impulse driven. Mm. It So that is that part. And this is the part which is the conditioned part, which is saying, no, this is good behavior, this is how you should do, this is what you should do. This is the social conditioning part, and this is the impulsive part, the childlike part. And quite often what happens is, there's a conflict between this and this. And I'm sure most of you can relate to this, because one part of us feels, what the hell. Mm, Let me just lie in bed. Mm, I don't feel like working or doing anything today. Uh, Let me just warm up and feel cozy and uh, browse the internet, watch some movies on Netflix, make myself some nice warm chai or coffee or whatever you like, and let me spend today just doing that. Mm. And then there's another part of you which says, no, you must be responsible. Uh, so, like, come on, get up, do your exercise. Come on, get up. Mm, you must go to work, you must do something. So, there is always this conflict between this part of us, which is just wants to do something on an impulse. And the impulse is generally things that make us feel good or make us feel easy. The responsible part is, which is the disciplining part of our personality. Or the impulsive part is like, if someone is, you know, behaving in a manner um, which is not pleasant for us, then either the impulsive part will tell the person to just shut up, or the impulsive part will just stonewall that person. I don't want to do anything with that person, or whatever it may be. The responsible part will be, no, everyone has a good side to them. And the responsible part will try to behave in a non-reactive manner. I think that's the word. The impulsive part is reactive in a way, which is not to say it's good or bad, it's just reactive. The responsible part is tries to be non-reactive. It tries to control the reactions. It could be emotional reactions, it could be sensory reactions. It just tries to control and tries to be this. And there's always this conflict which is keep on going on in this impulsive part and this responsible part of us. And there's always this tug of war between these two parts. So if this impulsive part does something, then the responsible part may become like critical. Oh, why did you get angry? Oh, why did you sleep late? Oh, why are you not exercising? Oh, why are you not doing this? So this is like the critical parent. That's another term in transaction. This is a critical parent which is constantly telling this part what it should do, what it should not do. And all said and done, we are almost all humans. We have feelings. We have naturally we feel like doing something, and in many ways this other part of us is like the intuitive energy also. While it may be reactive, there's an element of intuitiveness about it. It is not so thoughtful, but it has an element of intuitiveness also in it. So there is this constant tug of war that is going on, and this sometimes the responsible part is also sort of not so certain of how to behave. This is another interesting part about this, the responsibility part, which is it is it has its own program, it has its own conditioning based on its childhood. It has its own code of conduct, if I may use, I think that's a good word, a code of conduct. But uh, often this responsible part is also becomes uncertain in quite often in situations what I should do. Should I do this? Should I not do this? Should I behave like this? Should I not behave like this? So it seems to have some authority based on its own code of conduct, but it doesn't seem to have absolute authority. It constantly is looking for validation. What I'm doing, is this right? Is this not so right? And then it's always looking at somebody it holds in high regard, or somebody it sees as an authority person, maybe somebody who's a mentor, who's a guide, maybe who's a coach, who's a guru, and then this person will call up that person and say, look, this is the situation that I'm going through. I don't know whether this is what I should be doing, this is what I should not be doing. So there is no absolute certainty in terms of what is supposedly responsible behavior also. So while there is an element of some degree of responsibility, but there's no absolute. So often this part makes us also feel guilty about how we are behaving, because we may be feeling angry, and this part says, no, you should not feel anger. You should be loving and kind. We may be feeling lustful. This part says, no, we should not feel lustful. We should not. Uh, we may be feeling like lazy. Then this part will say, no, you should not feel. So these are natural impulses, and this part is sort of judging these natural impulses and saying, this is how you should be. So often enough, as a result of that, when behavior is not in according to the responsible voice, there is an element of guilt. And in often in some other cases, there's also an element of shame, because I am not behaving in the way what I believe is responsible behavior. So when that behavior is hidden from others, then there's an element of shame. And when that uh, is something where the person believes I should not have done that, then there's an element of guilt. So this responsibility, while it has its benefits, and I'll talk about what exactly I want to eventually share in terms of this whole topic and link it to awareness, because that's the whole essence of, like I say, these classes are not self-help classes. These are help classes that move us closer to our own self, which is a pure awareness. So this part has some short-term benefits, but then it comes with a price, this responsible behavior. It can make us feel guilty. uh, it can make us feel ashamed about ourselves. At the same time, when we do what this responsible voice in us is telling us, then we can also feel a sense of pride and a sense of arrogance. Look, you know, I set out to do this thing. I and now I can do it. The sense that I am in charge, I am in control. So there's an element of pride, arrogance, that also comes. One may say self-confidence, but essentially it is like, I can do it. That is, and quite often the world celebrates this thing. I can do it. Like Nike is, just do it. So responsibility is, you set some goal and then you make effort and you do it, and then you get a feeling of confidence. And that confidence can also slightly translate into arrogance or pride. On the flip side of that behavior is that you don't do what you have set yourself out to do, or um, you fail at it, and then there's a feeling of regret. You feel low. So this has a duality. This whole thing has a duality, that if I do not behave in the way I am meant to behave, or I think I should behave, that's the word. This is all about shoulds and should nots. Then I feel guilty, ashamed, I feel low, I feel depressed. And if I do, then I feel good, confident, achievement oriented, I feel powerful, I feel some degree of pride, arrogance. So, duality. So, this is the nature of the mind. Now, is there any other way to express ourselves which is not necessarily impulsive, and which is neither necessarily coming from a parental voice in us, which is responsible? Be responsible. Mm. And this is what most people struggle with. And this is also what most people most people don't know, is there any other way? Because how else? Our behavior is mostly either impulsive, because that's what, if I feel like doing something, then I do this. This makes me feel good, I'll do this. This doesn't make me feel good, I won't do this. Or the behavior is very responsible oriented, which is coming from a certain sense of enforced discipline of myself. So between these two, and then this is what the struggle is. One part of us says, I want to do this. Another part says, no, you should be doing this. So, and this between these two, there is this whole struggle, this whole conflict that keeps happening. So, I believe that there is a way where one can exist without necessarily being impulsive and without necessarily behaving purely based on certain code of conduct, or having to be responsible. And this is the part which is where it gets tricky, because if you tell someone that, you know, there is a possibility to live life which has nothing to do with responsibility, and then suddenly people, like, because it challenges their concept, their belief, how, what do you mean that, um, not be responsible? How else should one live, if not to be responsible? And that really triggers people. But like I said, responsibility has a double-edgedness to it. One part will make you feel good when you're doing what the voice of responsibility is saying, and the other part will make you feel miserable when you're unable to do, because we are, at the end of the day, we are all humans. We are not robots to just function according to a program that has been fed into us. There are times when we slip up, when we don't necessarily behave according to what the mind has told us or how we have been conditioned to behave. So the the question is, or the inquiry is it possible to be responsible without necessarily um, trying to be responsible? I think that's a good way to put it. Is it possible to be responsible without trying to be responsible? Is it possible to be responsible without having a code of conduct, uh, without a voice telling us, a mind telling us, this is what you should do, this is what you should not do? Is it possible? And is it possible to be responsible without even the word responsibility? And so let me, before I introduce that possibility, let me sort of move uh, uh, the discussion towards, um, or bring your attention to another area, which is, then I'll talk about what that is. So if you look at nature, nature doesn't necessarily, I don't think plants and trees and the sun and the moon and the sea and the species, other than human beings, any of them really think. I really don't know. Maybe one lifetime when I'm born as a tree, I will I will be able to say for certain whether a tree thinks or not. Um, um, but nature seems not to be functioning out of thinking, which is another word for responsibility, because responsibility is a thought in our head which is telling us, do this, behave like this. This is responsibility. The nature seems to be functioning according to its own intelligence, so to speak. And why I say intelligence? Because there seems to be an existence which is not random, which seems to have a certain intelligence. If you look at a tree, the initial part of a tree is that it's a small seed. That seed grows into a whole tree. Somewhere embedded in that seed was the intelligence of a tree. The very fact that there is fill and the leaf, and so if you really look into the nitty-gritty of nature, there is so much of intelligence in nature. and everything seems to be interdependent. It's like one, it's working in a one tandem. In fact, I was um, hearing this, that the distance between the earth and the sun is a few billion, I don't know, kilometers, or but it is there is a certain distance between the sun and the earth, which makes life possible on earth. If the sun was even a little closer, the earth would burn. There would not be any life. And if the sun was a little further away, then the earth would freeze to death. There would be no life on earth. Now, what intelligence has made it possible that sun, the distance of the sun from the earth is optimal so that life can happen on the planet? There has to be some intelligence, right? Unless the sun said, I must behave responsibly, and I should be maintain this perfect distance from the earth so that there can be life on earth. The sun thinks like that, and it keeps behaving responsibly, uh, so that there is life on earth. What if the sun suddenly became impulsive one day? So like, oh, I'm tired of being at this distance. Let me come a little closer to Earth, or let me go a little further away from Earth. What would happen to life on Earth? I'm just giving you one example, but there's so many examples in nature which are making that life is happening intelligently. If you look at the tides, the seasons, the earth rotating on its axis, which is creating the seasons, all of this is intelligence. And it's not intelligence in action, which is based on thinking intelligence. It just is intelligence coming out of existence. It is not responsible behavior to my knowledge. Not that I don't know whether the sun thinks. I don't think the sun thinks, or anything in nature really thinks and tries that I will be responsible. It just behaves naturally. And in that natural expression, there seems to be intelligence. And let's come towards something which is much closer to us. And what is the most closest to us is this body that we consider as ourself, which is nothing but actually a body that we have. And there's a difference between I am the body to I have a body. And there's a difference between I am the mind to I have a mind. So what about this body? Is it behaving responsibly? Does the body have thoughts, and is it told, is it conditioned like, okay, look, digestion, this is what you're supposed to do. Hmm. Look, heart, you're supposed to pump uh, all throughout the life. You're supposed to pump blood. Look, respiration, you're supposed to do your things. The lungs, you're supposed to do. Um, so, is it like when we are children that somebody sat the body down, our body down, and said, and spoke to each part of the body? Look, you eyes, nose, tongue, ears, you need to do this. This is responsible behavior for you. Look, heart, you're supposed to do this. Or stomach, you're supposed to do this. Uh, you all please behave responsibly. There seems to be some intuitive intelligence which is making the body function. And it is intelligent because if it didn't function in this certain rhythm and certain pattern, there would be no life. And when the body is unwell, or if there is a cut, or if there's an injury, then the body has the capacity to heal itself. Of course, provided we give it the right, rest, we give it the right healing opportunity, the body has its own healing mechanism. So where does this intelligence come from? Is the body behaving responsibly? So the point I'm trying to make is that if you look in nature, there seems to be a natural intelligence. I think the right word is a natural intelligence. That is the best word. One is responsible behavior coming from conditioning and thoughts, which can make us feel guilty on one side and it can make us feel proud and arrogant on the other side. And other is a natural intelligence of nature, and including our own bodies. Now, one can say, look, we human beings are the most evolved species, so hence have the gift of thought, or one could also say the curse of thought, that we can behave responsibly. But if this responsibility creates so much of stress and tension and conflict in us, creates so much of guilt and shame in us, or creates pride and arrogance in us, or creates uncertainty in us because we don't even know more often than not what is responsible behavior, what's the right behavior. Quite often, people are like, what should I do? If someone behaves like this, insults me, and then what should I do? Uh, there is an uncertainty how I should behave in a certain situation. This responsibility doesn't have self-validation. It's always looking for validation from outside. So, is it possible that we have access to natural intelligence, which does not necessarily mean either impulsive behavior, which does not necessarily mean responsible behavior coming from a code of conduct and from thoughts and conditioning? And what I feel is, yes, we have a natural intelligence, which does not necessarily mean it has to be responsible behavior coming from thoughts or impulsive behavior, but it's just a natural intelligence which tells us, which doesn't even tell us, which expresses itself naturally in the most appropriate way that is needed in the moment. Because we are not apart from nature, we are not apart from existence. We are very much a part of this existence, but we have disconnected ourselves from nature, from existence, because of our mind, because we believe we are a separate person, which is again created by the mind, and hence we have separated ourselves from nature and existence. And then because we have separated ourselves from nature and existence, because of our belief that I am a separate person with a past history and a future, and then comes all the responsible behavior. This person should behave like this person should do this person should not do this. So then we are disconnected from our natural intelligence. So what is the way to reconnect or reclaim our natural intelligence? And that is what this whole conversation is about. So any guesses of how we can reclaim or reconnect with our natural intelligence? I think the simplest and perhaps the only way to reclaim our natural intelligence, our intuitive ability to tell us, which is not even tell us, because then that's it's like something which is telling the mind. No, this natural intelligence behaves spontaneously, organically, naturally, according to the need of the moment. Now, quite often it may be interpreted as impulsive behavior, but it is not necessarily. It's not impulsive behavior. It is coming from a natural intelligence which whole of the universe has, which we have, but we have disconnected ourselves from it. So to reconnect with the universe, to reconnect with existence, to reconnect with the natural intelligence of life, what do we need to do? We need to come back into awareness. And what do I mean, come back into awareness? Which is what we do every session, sitting practice. Disassociate yourself from this constantly thinking mind, unconscious mind, radio chatter, and come back into silent presence. Come back into being. Come back into consciousness. Come back into existence. Silent, aware, doing nothing, just being. And you probably say that, does that mean I have to keep meditating all the time and to come back and to be in touch with my natural intelligence? That's a question you would ask. No, you need not meditate all the time. Unless you're called to meditate, then you can meditate all the time if you don't have family responsibilities and other things to do. There's nothing harm. You can choose to be a monk and go into monastery and devote your time to meditation. But at least sometime during the day, you should get in touch with your natural intelligence, which is stemming from your natural being and not coming from a thinking mind. The thinking mind's intelligence is based on logic, based on memory, based on conditioning, based on analysis. This is how we live our life mostly, because we don't know any other way. The natural intelligence of existence is intuitive. It intuitively expresses itself. It intuitively says what is needed. And sometimes, to come from this thinking mind to come into natural intelligence, it's not going to be absolute, like, more often than not, it's a gradual process over a period of time. The more you come back into awareness, into silence, into being, the more the silence will start expressing itself through you. There's a book um, by, I think, Eckhart Tolle. It's called Stillness Speaks. And maybe there's another book by Thich Nhat Hanh, which is called Silence. And silence and stillness can very well express themselves in daily life. What do I mean by that? That when your mind is silent, then that natural intelligence knows what to eat, how much to eat, what to do. It just expresses itself. It And then that expression doesn't seek constant validation from others, like, tell me, am I doing the right thing, am I not doing the right thing? Because you're grounded in your being. So the being is expressing itself. The being has its own intelligence. It is not seeking validation from other people for what is responsible behavior. You, you get in touch with your own inner authority stemming from your own existence, from your own being. So the more we practice silence of the mind, the more we practice presence, the more we practice awareness. And like I said, it's not necessary that you have to keep sitting all throughout the day meditating. You can be walking in silence. And when I say silence, mean not just your mouth is not saying something, but your mind is also silent. So that's the practice. You can be having a cup of tea in silence. You could be shopping in silence. So if there is silence, then life will express itself naturally according to its natural intelligence. And yeah, that so what I wanted to share in this, if I had to give this particular talk a title or a topic, it would be to move away from responsibility towards responsiveness, because the natural intelligence is responsive. Natural intelligence is not like I must do this, I should not do this, this is good for me, this it doesn't have mental chatter. A natural intelligence is naturally spontaneously responsive. So one must learn to differentiate between responsibility and responsiveness. Responsiveness has a natural intelligence to it. It doesn't seek validation from others. It just feels this feels good, wholesome for me. I think another good word I would probably give is wholesome. What feels wholesome will express itself. But because we are disconnected from nature, existence, we are constantly in the unconscious thinking mind as a person, chattering. We are constantly just thinking, what is good, what is not good, is this. So, so give existence a chance, because the universe is functioning out of extraordinary intelligence. If you look everywhere around you, the sun, the moon, the stars, the planets, the ocean, the seasons, the animal, the species, everything is functioning according to some natural intelligence, in tandem with, interdependent with each other. If the some mysterious force can take care of the universe and life in it intelligently, don't you think that mysterious intelligence can take care of so-called your life, which you believe it is my life I'm living, my life, which itself is illusion that the mind is creating. So give, so all I can say is surrender. That's all. So surrender this notion of control, because really to come back into silence, one has to also surrender this constantly wanting to control things, wanting things to be in a certain way and wanting them to necessarily be right. And it's not easy for the mind to surrender unless it really goes through a period where it suffers so much that eventually it has no choice but to open the fist of control and say surrender. And that also is a matter of grace. But at least practice silence, presence, awareness, consciousness, whatever word you may want to give it, as often as you can, as often as you can. So you can get in touch with a natural intelligence, which is there in us, which is there in the whole universe. And that intelligence is responsive. It's not responsibility, it is just responsive. So give life a chance, give nature a chance to express itself through you. So I hope I did justice to what I wanted to share. I hope I explained what I wanted to share um, in a coherent, intelligent manner. And like, I don't prepare any of my sessions. I just knew, okay, this is what I want to talk about. Now, what is going to come was more like a spontaneous expression. So do share if you wish, whether you could get a sense of what I'm trying to say. And I would really urge you, invite you to practice. And honestly, whatever I'm sharing is coming from my own experience. It is not something I'm reading in a book and then I'm sharing. So if it's possible, I mean, if I have experienced it, and that's the reason with very great honesty and sincerity that I'm sharing. And I think there is depth and wisdom in this knowledge. So with that, let's end today's session with a small prayer, and then we'll meet again in the next session. So close your eyes if you wish, join your palms in Namaste. Take a deep breath in and exhale. My dear higher self, help me to reclaim my natural intelligence, by my oneness with the universe, by reclaiming my existence. Help me to give up this constantly mental, thinking, chattering mind, telling me, do this, don't do this is good, this is bad, should not, and come into a state of silence, not just a spoken silence, but also a mental silence, and help me to reside in this silence as often as I can. Silence and awareness. I seek a grace to help me to move from the world of responsibility, which creates pride and arrogance, guilt or shame, regret, towards responsiveness, which is natural, spontaneous, does not seek validation from others. Seek your grace and guidance to realize my true self. Om Shanti, Shanti. Okay. So, with that, we end today's session. I hope it was helpful to you. Goodbye. God bless and take care.